Tacky Talk time, folks. State Representative Tacky Chan of Quincy is joining us for our last Tacky Talk of June 2023, Tacky.
Yes, good to see you. We actually did it in 1 week's time this time. The schedule did sync up, and I'm hoping everyone listening will enjoy the long July 4th weekend. I'm sure some of you may be taking the Monday off. We are not, to my knowledge, taking the Monday off. Well, I'm definitely not taking the Monday off. Between some family fun day events, and obviously it's a good day for me to catch up on work when, to be honest with you, when no one's looking for it, it's a lot faster to catch up on work.
It's amazing what you can get done when the phone's not ringing. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, literally. We live in the era of cell phones and emails, so constant reach out is a reoccurring theme, and people have opinions of a lot of things, and they're not shy about emailing them out or text messaging out, just in case me if they know me well about different issues, and I note it all, and I still have a committee chair work. People tend to forget that is actual work too. I mean, we are trying to get through 3 more hearings in the month of July, including issues such as massage. It's not massage. I'm sorry. Bodyworks modalities are not massage therapy, which has been controversial the last 3 terms. We expect a major hearing. We have right to repair, which the National Highway Safety Board has issued a ruling presented first circuit judge, and we're trying to figure out at our level, whether we should get involved or not involved, and that testimony will be pretty interesting. And we're going to do more consumer stuff at the end of this month, including the conversation of peer-to-peer ticket reselling, which is unregulated in Massachusetts. Actually, most of the country has it unregulated. There's a first regulation is actually in New York State. California is trying to sort it out. And we've kind of been observing how New York has enrolled it, and it seems to be okay. But again, every state is slightly different. So, the industry wants its own regulations on peer-to-peer, and you don't always listen to the industry people because they kind of sort of want to fix it towards their benefit. It's kind of how that works, folks. So
lobbying, right? Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not like you don't pay attention, but I do have a little bit of common sense, I think, regarding how this implements. So, I mean, those are like 3 big hearings coming up, and we did a big data privacy hearing on Monday regarding your privacy of your GPS data on your phone that is sold to third parties. So that was a very good hearing, very interesting hearing, which took out 2/3 of the testifiers was about that one topic. Okay. So yeah, we got a lot going on.
And also, seeing you brought up about your committee, can we talk a little bit about a bill by your colleague in the Senate, Susan Moran, about background checks for contractors?
Yeah, this comes from NBC 10 regarding Catch a Contractor series that was done over the last 2 years. Ryan did a great job over there on putting the story together. And this is kind of a really tricky issue. In Massachusetts, you don't need to be licensed to be a home contractor. You do need to be licensed to do electrical work, plumbing, pipe fitting, sheet metal. Those are licensed professions, but the actual home contractor, let's say putting a deck together, does not. And you are generally registered with the Office of Consumer Affairs as a home contractor. You do have a call it kind of a record. I mean, people file complaints, it comes up against your registration number, but it's not a license. You don't need a license, it's just registration, meaning that,
I think that's a revelation to a lot of people, Tacky.
Well, people confuse the two. License, certification, and registration are 3 very distinct and different things. Well, in my world anyway, they're not interchangeable. And what's been happening is that one particular contractor has been very nefarious for many years, basically doing like 1/4 of the work and walking away with people's money. During COVID, this became a real problem because people who had extra money and couldn't go away, put a lot of money into their homes, especially pools. And some folks who are unscrupulous, walked away in the midst of a big hole and called it good. And obviously, number of lawsuits. So what happens is that similar to OSHA violations, which I have actually built on require OSHA training on all private jobs, not just public construction jobs. They just change the name of their company and go bankrupt, so to speak, and then reapply, none the wiser. and do have some concerns regarding how this is implemented. And one of the suggestions from my former co-chair, who's now the vice chair of the committee, like Consumer Protection Professional Relations, Sue Moran, from Barnstable, is to require background checks, increase the amounts you can get the guarantee fund, which is the state's recovery mechanism for, I won't say it's going to cover your costs, but a very small amount of your costs if you've got a big project. And these funds are paid for by the contractors' registrations. Under the Baker administration, they made a priority to refill that fund. During the Paul Patrick administration, the fund was greatly depleted. Depletion of fund generally means that people are getting paid out. Baker's people assume the opposite positions to make it a little harder to get people to get this money and actually refill the fund. So I do have a kind of a question mark here. Well, I don't disagree that we need money in the fund. The lack of depletion, so to speak, lack of payout is also a bad sign as well. And
I understand the whole process for applying for that is pretty cumbersome.
It is and it isn't. If you look at the form and you read it, like actually read it, it's just a checklist.
Okay.
And one of the ones that I was talking to NBC 10 about this, that is the stumbling block everyone seems to not want to check the box off, is confirmation of service for what do you call it? Being served for non-compliance of judgment. So the state's position on the guarantee fund is that you are supposed to exhaust all your legal options first. And if you get recovery, then you don't need the guarantee fund. If you can't get full recovery, then you have to file a service, you hire a constable, and they file a serve. They serve the defendant for non-payment. And all you have to do is demonstrate that you served, meaning you have the receipt, copy letter, and you paid for the constable.
Okay.
And you can apply for a guarantee fund. And that seems to be the one stumbling block, according to talking to NBC 10, that people seem to not grasp. Because
you'd have to get an attorney, wouldn't you?
Well, you would need an attorney to sue the individual anyway, unless it's a small claims issue. If you got a big claim, obviously you need an attorney. Small claims, which is under $2,500, you go to small claims court. But either way, you need a judgment, and people under the false impression that people get a judgment, they just kind of roll over and die. That isn't how defendants operate.
Right.
Right. It's sad but true, folks.
They'll have their own attorney, right, and fight it. Yeah.
And they fight it, and they're going to be jerks about it and paying out. Because they're going to be, it's not going to be insured, because insurance companies don't want to insure fraud. And you have to file a writ of service. You have to serve them via constable. And all you have to do is demonstrate you do that, plus the other check boxes of actually trying to recover your money first, good faith effort in your front, pursuant to the checklist, and then you can apply for a guarantee fund. And
okay.
My
So
world,
it's critical to document everything you do. Then it sounds like.
Oh, absolutely. I tell people, if you ever feel like you've been slighted or wrong, you got to maintain a record, a timeline log, what's going on, and don't lose paper. People have a bad habit of putting out big money on something. You better hold on to every scrap of piece of paper you got. And obviously, get multiple bids. Obviously rely on friends and neighbors who use the same people, because that's the best reputation. And obviously, if they screw up, you go after your neighbor, like, come on, what you just do to me? You recommended me this guy, right? So it creates some new pressure. But I do that too. I mean, I talk to friends and neighbors and use certain, contractors, and not surprising, it works out all right. But there's no guarantees, right? There's no guarantee the recommendation is good. So that's basically home contractors in a nutshell. You don't have to be a original home contractor. Handyman, for example, quote unquote, a handyman is not a home contractor always. They're just persons that do some fixer uppers, just a little work here or there. So that's how it works. So yeah, they're not licensed, only registered. They know how to scam by changing the corporation, by going bankrupt. And if you've been scammed, obviously, file a complaint with Office of Consumer Affairs, but you have to try to do your own recovery first before you can access the guarantee fund. And ask why. Well, it's pretty simple. If you take the guarantee fund money from a state, before you get recovery, you get full recovery somehow, perhaps, then you just got bonus money from the state.
Yeah, you've been made more than whole, which is not fair, right? Yeah.
And then the state will have to do claw back.
That's
and that is hard, because now the state has to sue you for recovery of over benefit.
Gotcha. Okay. So
In
it's,
fact, yeah, victims don't care.
yeah,
They just want their money. Now, you as a taxpayer be like, what?
right.
But you don't complain to the person that benefited. You just beat me up. That's kind of how that works.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay. I understand now. So thanks for that explanation. I appreciate that. So it's still in joint committee?
Yeah, still committee. We're trying to knock out some very what I call relatively light balls, stuff that we've passed in the past 2 terms out of committee that didn't make it to the finish line. Trying to get that stuff out of the way. I have a new co-chair, John Cronin from Fitchburg, and he's we're not going to just drop like a ton of stuff on him right away. I mean, that's not fair. He just showed up in March, so we're going to kind of ease him in on some of the non-offensive, as I said, not controversial materials first, and with the harder stuff, we'll move into the fall on.
Okay. All right. Very good. Let's see what else I got on my list here. Oh, safe injection sites, Tacky. What do you think about those?
I kind of get it. I kind of not. It's kind of one of those things that's not new. It's been around for well into a decade. Canada's experimented with this. They're compiling studies now, its impact, and it's a little. I get it and don't get it, right? I mean, the idea is that if you have a substance abuse issue, you're going to go to injection center, you get a clean needle, reduces the chance of HIV, and have supervision in case something goes sideways in the midst of the euphoria impact associated with basically a drug. I mean, a substance that will cause you harm. On the flip side, just because you go there doesn't mean they're going to take help. One of the theories is that you go to these injection locations, you have an opportunity to try to give people counseling and assistance to try not to be using these drugs. But if they don't take the assistance, it's almost a type of enabling. And I'm not one of those guys that believes that, you hide things from people, it makes the world a better place, right? I mean, people should be aware that this will kill you. You shouldn't use it, right? It's like fentanyl will kill you. You should know about that.
Well, I mean, there's warnings on cigarette packages for crying out loud. So yeah.
Yeah, and also just society at large. I mean, sometimes we tend to bury our heads about world problems, and you can't solve all the world's problems. But stuff that obviously affects people's personal health and safety. I mean, knowledge is power. The more we know, the better off we handle it. And I always give credit to a lot, the city of Quincy being first city in the country to actually have Narcan as part of police department training, as well as our health centers here are very much into Narcan training. And I know Senator Keenan has a bill regarding free Narcan access at train stations, which I'm still a little scratching my head about, because I mean, who's going to just take all the Narcan out of the train station and walk away with it? It's not like you're walking out with a fire extinguisher, I do have some question marks, less about the sincerity of the issue, more about what's to stop you from helping yourself.
Yeah.
That's a concern, because people with substance abuse issues sometimes think Narcan is a solution on their own if there's an overdose where they are, not realizing that it provides a short time span of stability, and you still need to get emergency medical treatment.
Right. Just buys you some time. That's all. Yeah.
Buys you a bit of time to get some real emergency room help. So this is kind of the interesting thing about injection centers, right? There's no guarantee someone's going to get help. You are providing a safe locale in case something awful happens.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, though, there's also an enabling factor. It's, again, you can tell it's not an easy calculus.
I know. No, it's been likened to, having free alcohol for people in AA.
Yeah, I mean that's a type of analogy to it. But at least in AA you dare to seek help. Here the purpose is to provide safe opportunity to continue your addiction.
Yeah.
And that's the part. The thing is that that's the part that's muddled over on this conversation, is that the first purpose is a safe place to get your injection of drugs. That's first purpose.
Yeah.
Second purpose is to try to get people help
Right.
as part of that process. I get it. As you can tell, I do understand. I understand. You can see the pros and cons of what I'm trying to get at here.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But does it further the goal, the public policy goal of trying to help people to move off addiction? Or is the public policy goal to provide a safe place for addiction to continue?
Right. Yeah. It sounds like it's more, a healthcare or health specialist question than a legislative question.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, obviously, I'm a jack of all trades. I kind of know a little this, little that, but hardly an expert on all healthcare, all medical. As you can see, I do think about this through
Mm.
on both sides, or sometimes, as I tell folks, sometimes it's like 3 sides or 10
Three sides
sides.
to the story.
It's more than sometimes two some days, and
It's almost always more than two. Yeah.
yeah, and you can see the kind of where I'm running here with this kind of pro and con conversation. And I don't believe the injection site is going to happen in Massachusetts. I don't think the public policy goals of the state is to try to reduce addiction. But it becomes a massive cash question, right? When one of the things I've learned about substance abuse over the years is that it's an enabling factor. If you're around other people who are addicts and willing to enable, you form a type of community among yourselves as needing the same addiction. It kind of feeds itself.
Yeah. You need a different, healthier common ground than that.
Well, it's one reason why people with addictions leave their communities to get treatment in other areas where they're far enough away from the people that would enable that behavior as they're trying to recover. Because
Right.
re-engaging new folks, creates new peer pressure, and they're your friends and so forth. And next thing you know, you're back into trouble. And again, I'm not saying this is true for everyone.
Mhm.
This is just from me listening to other folks who are in recovery as one of the things they discovered on the road to recovery that benefited them. Other folks obviously should stay inside the community because the support network is there. It's just they got to keep away from the folks that enable them. And it's no one size fit all to recovery. I mean, every time I listen to individual in recovery, each person has a different story to tell. And these are stories that I carry with me on trying to understand how to deal with the public policy of addiction.
Yeah, I'm glad you're sharing this, Jackie, because it gives a little insight into how legislators like yourself have to tackle issues, like this.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, a big part is listening.
Mm.
And I carry a lot of people's stories with me, and people. Again, I'm becoming old on the tooth in state house life, right? And there's always a story. You just keep people's names out of who the story is, and not too much detail, as you can tell, about the individuals I talk to.
Right. No, privacy is, of course, paramount. Yeah.
But I'm basically distilling it to the lessons I've learned as I talk about this now.
Yeah, but it humanizes your job. More than just bill numbers and policy statements. There are people behind all of these issues.
Yeah, and I do read my emails, as I say over and over again. We prioritize constituent emails and all emails regarding people's real life problems, so to speak. And I talk to the staff about what's going on and to work on it. They update me on the progress, and we brainstorm some ideas about whether we can find or cannot find a solution, which does happen, right? I can't solve every single problem, and but it's also important from my standpoint to talk to my staff, and we will sit and brainstorm. And people forget I did do constituent services way back in the day with Michael Morrissey, and I also did constituent services myself way back when I was a starting rep with one staffer. So a lot of reps, in particular, more so than senators, not to beat on the Senate, even though I'm a person who came out of the Senate. There's a very hands-on job for me, reps, because it's you and one aide, and that's it. Much like city councilors and board of selectmen, unless you're like Boston or Cambridge, right, which you have these big offices for them with staff. Most of reps, are doing it hands-on. It's a one-on-one themselves.
Yeah, and they're living in the communities they're representing. So exactly, yeah.
Yeah, precisely. I mean, senators start off with minimum four staffers at minimum. And, a lot of senators don't have to do hands-on unless they came from a council, like John came from the council. He had to do hands-on stuff, and he continues to do hands-on stuff because he knows how to do it. But if you're just, a person that never got elected before, you become a state senator, you get a staff of 4, you probably never have to ever touch constituent services, unlike a newly elected representative. Again, I'm not disparaging either side because obviously now I've been on both sides for many years. But this is one of the cultural differences between the two branches.
Right. Yeah. Interesting. As we're speaking today, it's June 29th, and just today, the Supreme Court handed down a decision banning affirmative action for use in college admissions.
Yeah, I got to look into this a little more. This just happened this morning. It appears to be strictly a race-based issue. I don't know how it affects veterans or athletes or people with developmental disabilities issues or handicap accessibility issues. The race is the big thing with affirmative action. But civil rights issues also extend out to other marginalized groups, especially people with disability, people with limited English skills, for example. Kind of sort of, it's a weird one on that front. Obviously, veteran benefit, is a big factor. It's a type of affirmative action there. So I'm not sure how this is going to work out. My big fear, obviously, particularly the Ivy League schools, is legacy. Being an alum is a big factor in those universities, and that's what people should be attacking. And up to Harvard has admitted in lawsuits that the up to 30% plus legacy students automatic pass in, which takes away 30% plus of the seats right away. It could grow even higher than 30% depending on your admission. And let's be honest, you buy them a building, your kid's going to go to the college. I mean, let's not.
They put people's names on buildings when they buy them. Exactly. Yeah.
Let's not pretend that's not happening, people. Right? You buy them a building, you're gonna let your kids in. Doesn't matter how good or bad a student they are, or what sports they do or do not play. So
money talks. Right.
Yeah. So it's gonna be interesting to see how the universities respond. Did they actually try to find a workaround to continue diversity in the schools, or they decide to just, expand the legacy program because now they've been blanche to do expansion of legacy, and encourage more major donors to buy buildings, or do you, do you strictly do test scores? Like I said, I've not seen the case, because just because they rule back affirmative action doesn't mean they can't continue their calculation of a student beyond just a test score. They can look at, your community service work. They can look at your quality of the essay. You have to pass. Many of the bigger schools require an interview from an alumni to pass you through as part of the review process. People look at whether or not you have been out of the workforce, for example. That was a factor for me in law school. I learned after the fact that naming law school looked at your work history. They believe that people who, particularly night school, who are a little bit older, have work history, has a higher odds of finishing law school, because the general assumption is that you had a job, what life is like, and you're more disciplined to actually finish school. For example, it's one of the theories. It's not the sole factor, but it's one of the factors. So, I mean, does this eliminate other non-race-based factors in this? And like I say, you still got the college athletic program, right? I mean, there's been a lot of controversial years about whether athletes should get paid in college sports, which I think they should, because they're making so much money off these kids. But let's have to look at it. But it really just upends, another 60 years worth of case law, in one stroke. And I don't know if the court provided a remedy.
Interesting. Yeah, well, if past performance is any indication, they didn't.
Yeah, the court has a tendency of doing that. They don't always provide a remedy to the situation, nor do they provide guidelines or guidance for you. This court has on big topic social issues not really provided much remedy, other than, in fact, go back to the states or go back to the legislature, or provide some guidance on what will be considered, whether it be passing a law or people civil cases, what they can do on their own to stay in compliance with the law.
Right. Yeah. At least Roe v. Wade was a classic example. Massachusetts stepped right in after that and enacted its own policies.
Well, that's a easy example we can point out to. Now we have a patchwork of states with defining different variations of healthcare. And now it's become very complex for some folks regarding their own healthcare decisions. And I'm one of those folks that don't want the government to tell me what I can do with my body, because that's how I see it. And it's that simple, So If you shouldn't tell me what to do, then you shouldn't tell what someone else to do either. And the court, has decided to punt, but not exactly declaring it illegal, but punting it back as a state right issue. Let the state solve the problem. And this is the part that's kind of lost on the conversation of Roe. It didn't say that you can't do it. It said that it's not our problem. The federal government overreached, and it's a state problem, which then creates, of course, the ban on abortion or restriction of abortions, depending on what state you're in, on a state-by-state basis, which creates a patchwork of non-conforming laws, on this matter. It's not the first time. We do have non-conforming laws. For example, as you all know, I do alcohol, and all 50 states and territories do not have conforming alcohol laws in each state. But, the 21st Amendment, and the 19th mandate? I can't remember the numbers anymore. But, when you ban alcohol universally, it creates a universal rule. But, they also ruled that states have the ability to regulate alcohol. But if it moves interstate, the alcohol, tobacco, firearms, has the ability to oversee that stuff, and federal excise tax still applies as soon as it moves through state lines. So again, I deal with a lot of cross-jurisdictional issues, as a consumer chair, with regulated industries and non-conforming states on a commercial area. So it creates a patchwork, and it does impact Massachusetts residents if you try to work through the patchwork around us.
Stay tuned, as they say.
Yeah, it'll be interesting how it's going to take some time to see what the response is and whether or not the states can respond. I mean, obviously, the federal government can, if they so desire, because it can create a new federal law.
Right.
They won't do that because Congress is a mess. So, can states is a big question, though. Can states do this without federal legislation? The answer, I don't know.
Well, right. I mean, or is this just for learning institutions that receive federal funding? Because some don't.
That's correct. People don't realize schools that don't receive any kind of federal funding do not have to comply with any kind of case law or law in general that requires race-based or gender-based equity. So, as you're probably aware, there are schools in the South that are strictly one race, strictly one gender. And there's nothing wrong with those schools because they don't take any kind of federal assistance. So, is the solution for some big private universities to no longer participate in government assistance programs? That includes things like Pell Grants.
Right. That's right. Yep. I think it's going to be an interesting conversation going forward for sure. Some of the smaller schools especially would be impacted more, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, now it becomes, if you can pay, you can go. We won't consider things too. I think, overlook the money factor. I have a big pocketbook. I can afford it. People who may have not as much means and may not be the top person in the class, but shows a ton of promise will lose an opportunity, perhaps. I don't know. Again, we're moving uncharted ground, and I do not know if the state legislature has a role in this or not. And again, it's the devil's in the details of the law. And do we find ourselves in a situation you got a patchwork of states now, try to deal with affirmative action, so to speak, in their own way. And by the way, I mean, let's there's two types of affirmative action, and I will repeat this as I constantly ask me this issue. There's one is what we know is a quota system, right? People pick X number and that's it. That's the easy version. The other version of affirmative action is that people pick two folks who are very similar in qualifications, but you pick the one that least reflects your business or school. And the reasons because the people likes, right? People are not magnets. Opposites don't attract. It's not how it works with human beings. So people tend to be more comfortable with people that are like them. And which is, again, back to the legacy of alumni, right? It's why your education is important. You put on your resume because you may run across somebody at that decision-making processes will give the alumni a chance, over someone else because likes like. So, the other form of affirmative action, you have two people who are similar the qualifications to meet the job you're looking for, but one is not a reflection of your business or school. You should give the person that's not a reflection a chance because the other person may have still an advantage in other places because, like likes like.
Very great way to describe that, Jackie. Very politically correct way to describe all that.
Well, it applies to things like, beyond just race, right?
Yeah,
Gender,
that's true.
and education, socioeconomic background, different geographic locales.
Yeah.
Um,
Age factors, perhaps.
age is a big factor, veteran status, development disability issues, likes like.
Mhm.
And, folks, for example, the disability community is largely unable to get employment. There's always averaging around 90% unemployment in that community because, again, likes like. So, you're going to take somebody up who that doesn't reflect your business because, let's say, there's a wheelchair involved. And you have these preconceived notions, but everything else on paper looks wonderful and similar to other candidates.
Can we talk a little bit about the 3A housing law, Jackie, and how that might impact the city of Quincy in regards to development around transit stations? It's been discussed recently at the city council meeting. I'm sure you're aware of it.
What, you mean smart growth for like 40 of time?
Well, transit-oriented development is what the watch phrase is, I guess.
Yeah, they changed the name of an old thing again, right? It was it used to be about transit growth, and then during the Patrick administration, they called it smart growth. Then it was green growth, and now we're into this term. I mean, yeah, it's the same pig, just a different word, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if it's a duck and it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, I'm pretty sure it's still a duck. But then again, I have no idea anymore. The court may rule it's not a duck, for all I know.
You think it'll end up in court?
Yeah, I don't think so, but
Yeah, I don't think so either.
But I do jest. This is actually pretty interesting conservation because I don't know about you, but when I was a kid, nobody wanted to live near mass transit because of the noise, traffic, a lot of people passing back and forth. And over the course of the last 30 years, there's been a stronger desire to put people close to mass transit because, again, it's taking cars off the road. It tends to be more affordable. It's a great resource despite its problems it's having right now, which we can talk about later if you want. But that's kind of theory. It's part of this like green smart thing about development, right? One of the adverse consequences of that development is that housing is already at a premium, and selling access to mass transit has become part of a feature.
Mm-hmm.
And Deval Patrick, whether they realize it or not, inadvertently elevated prices near metro stations, train stations, and bus stops, and other hubs of public transportation because it's kind of part of a selling point. And with a combination of a housing shortage and higher desire of people not to drive, it creates very high rental prices near public.
Supply and demand. It's basic economics.
That wasn't the case at one time. And people that own homes and live near transit, it was kind of a discount because the idea of a lot of those factors I talked about, noise, more foot traffic, higher car traffic, inconveniences of quality of life. And now it's become the opposite.
Look at the Abbey at the North Quincy T station. It's delivering right in the station.
Well, it's also to Hancock, right? They built that directly next to the Ponce Bridge where you got the train at like eye level, and noise does travel a diagonal up off the tracks. So it's, it's there, right?
Yep.
So, and even here where I live, because I have the large marshland in front of my home, it's open air. I can hear the train rumble by, but of course, much fainter than you were living next to a train track, but very much fainter, obviously. But the noise does travel quite far in the right days of weather. It travels further on other days than others. So I think the challenge of the council will be, this type of development, we can call it whatever you want. It's not necessarily we should develop near public transit. The question is, how do you make it affordable?
Do you think that Quincy already complies? The mayor says it does.
Well, the Abbey kind of resolves some of that.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, seriousness. I mean, I'm aware the Metropolitan Area Planning Council, MAPC, has talked about developing Wallaston T Station parking lot, and you can, but there's that challenge of the ball. All of us know it floods. I get it. It's not a bad spot to put up housing on top of their existing parking lot and do an extension parking lot for public transit parking. But yeah, I mean, put aside the traffic issues and its locale. I mean, you also have a little bit of, flooding problems. Obviously Quincy Adams, you saw development of the apartments and across the street. There's more space, over by Elevation in Crown Colony. I mean, kind of there. Quincy Center, no surprise by nature of Quincy Center development. You're near public transit, you're within, less than a quarter mile public transit. You already got it going on there. Again, the question is less about whether or not this development. The question is whether you're creating affordable housing development. Because part of the point of this is that, you're able to, people who have some less means, to able to live near public transit so they can not have to buy a car to get to work because they can't afford a car. I mean, it's kind of like common sense, people. This isn't like hard to figure out.
Yeah, I mean, I think some people confuse affordable with government subsidized housing sometimes, and they're two vastly different worlds.
Absolutely, right. It's two different issues. And, everyone knows about 40B. If you don't have 10% affordable housing in your community, developer come in, look into affordable housing, the city can't stop it, right? Because there's a 40B unit. The alternative is you can pay into the, Housing Affordable Trust Fund, the city can use, the town can use to address affordable housing issues. And you also get community preservation grant monies out there with the CPA monies. And, it's a community preservation account or whatever they have, the trust fund, they can use some of that money. I mean, there's little pools of money, but the problem is the price of construction so high. Unless the city engages another developer or they try to figure out a worker project themselves, this is the price of doing business so high. There's not, no matter how big the trust fund is, it's hard to get development off the ground. And again, it's also a city planning issue, right? I mean, where do you want to put your affordable housing, right? The idea is affordability is you don't put it someplace where people can't get to work. I mean, the saying.
Yeah, no, that's an important point to point out, is that any development would still have to go through the whole city permitting process through, zoning board, planning board, city council.
Yeah, I only did a short stint in the zoning board. I did 1 year there. It was very educational 1 year in the zoning board.
I bet, yeah.
Very fascinating, and got a crash course on a lot of stuff in a short period of time. But yeah, you're right. You still have to go through, building permit, planning department, depending on the project, conservation commission, depending on the project. And then you have to hit the zoning board. And there's been arguments made for many, 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 many years now that it's an arduous process. It takes too long to get development going and too many obstacles of NIMBYs. And, but I like due process. I do like things in the public light. I do like transparency in terms of, ability for public to comment. If they choose to comment. So I'm not sure it's going to go. I mean, you're right. It's going to be a big challenge, and it comes to a bottom line objective. What is your objective as part of more development? Because there's already a lot of development. It's not like you can pretend there's none, near public transit regarding housing. And
right.
It's not an easy question to ask, and I don't envy the council trying to solve it.
Yeah, you brought up the fact that, I mean, public transportation right now, the MBTA is having a myriad of issues. So do we fix that first before we encourage people to live next to something that doesn't work?
You're correct too. That's a very good point. A very good point. Even when the T was better, the T even ran well, it was also imperfect. There was never a so-called golden age of public transit, but now it's just, at the bottom. I mean, it's at the bottom. And that's that's a very good point. I mean, we're going to start development, selling public transit as part of the deal, but public transit isn't working right. And we're talking about the MBTA a lot of times already, and the new general manager continues to have to be dealing with plagues and problems not of his creation to try to figure out how to resolve. And,
I know. I just get the sense that he's still trying to stomp out little fires all over the place while still trying to start the engine all over again.
Yeah, you're right. And, I can sit here and rehash, 25 years of MBTA history for you all, but there's no point to it. They got the problems today and the fires are on, and the general manager has to figure out how to solve it. I mean, I do actually have some, as you all heard, ideas of how we got here. Some history, I do know how come we have problems today, but that does not address the solution, which is what the current MBTA general manager, Phil Ng, is facing hard, and he's already been before the Joint Committee of Transportation this week, I believe, on Monday, to face questioning about the T's progress and what the plans are, and of course that have a federal component too, because the feds finally figured out we had a problem here. Us comply with federal safety requirements. So I said I don't envy the city. I think the council needs to figure out what their priority is regarding public transit housing. And what is the purpose here of what they're trying to accomplish? And once again, get their heads around it, move forward. And don't forget, there's a municipal election this year, right? I mean, I'm Ward 5. There'll be a Ward 5 councillor. They'll be tackling this after Chuck Phelan leaves after many years of service Chuck's provided to us. So there's 2 rounds in the council now, and I heard that Bill Harris as an opponent now in Ward 6. I think you told me that on QETV News, and maybe their large race gets a little hotter. With Ann Mahoney leaving, taking on, Mayor Koch, and, you have Ward 2 race, which is not direct public transit exactly, but still relevant, down in Ward 2, and see if any other races pop on the council level. And this could be a hot button point for folks, for affordable housing as a part of the conversation piece in this year's elections.
Yeah, no, I agree for sure. Let's see. Mass Health Tacky. Did you read the auditor's report on, let me see, I have it right in front of me here. Mass Health errantly paid more than $84 million related to care for residents who are living in other states.
I've not read it. What normally happens is that we get an email when it was Sue Bump with their reports. I will check right now since I'm sitting on my laptop.
Yes. While you're doing that, response from the Healy administration criticizing the report as, quote, overly broad and misleading, end quote. So there's already some disparity on.
Yeah, I'm looking now. The answer is that no, I do not have an email from the auditor's office with said report, which is fine. Again, new auditor, new way of doing things. Sue Bump. Sue Bump had always provided copies of reports. Again, new auditor can do what they want. I'm not saying Auditor DeZoglia has to give me stuff. So I will read about her materials on the news service like everyone else. So that's the answer, no. Sue actually used to give us like a link to download the PDF of the reports. So we'll see. We'll see how the administration responds. A lot of these audits are done directly towards executive branch folks regarding what they're doing, not doing. And I don't know if this is a report that was done investigation prior to Auditor DeZoglia's arrival, because there was stuff going on already with Sue Bump that was in the works. And then the new auditor can decide to stop it or start new stuff, or I don't know what the length of progress or time of this is. So yeah, thank you for breaking news in front of me.
Didn't mean to do that. I just assumed you would have already known about that. My mistake for assuming.
Well, as you guys are learning, it's not like I get special treatment. It's at discretion of the executive branch officers whether or not to give us prior or same notice as the meeting.
Yes. I will glad you send you my copy, Jackie. Not a problem. That's part of my job.
I can add it to my to-do list of long reading.
Yeah, exactly. How about the plan to double the bottle bill?
Yeah, I don't see it happening. I mean, we already had the ballot question in the bottle bill, which Quincy voters resoundingly said no on bottle bill expansion. Yep. We've done the 10-cent thing. If you guys are old enough to remember the 10-cent 2 liters, and you had the 5-cent for small and cans. And then,
yeah, I do remember that. Yes.
Yeah, back in the day, back in the long days. Yep. And they had to reduce everything to a nickel because it got weird and it was too hard to administer.
Yes.
So, one of the things people don't realize is that the bottle bill actually creates a competitive disadvantage for border communities on selling alcohol and other beverages because of the fact of the higher cost. 10 cents, will run against states that don't have bottle bills. They have single stream recycling instead. An increase in the bottle bill actually puts a competitive disadvantage on border communities. Obviously, Quincy's not a border community, so you don't have the same impact on it, but a border community has a reduction in sales. You can actually see data on different states regarding those who have bottle bills and don't have bottle bills regarding sales. And adjacent states to bottle bills have different economic effects than those that don't. And also size matters, right? Texas versus California is two different conversations because if you're like, in the middle of Texas, versus the edge of Texas, Texas, I don't believe it. Texas is not a bottle bill state. I'm just using an example. How increased charges on an item in the middle of a state has a different impact on the borders. Same thing in California, be much more profound. California is a bottle bill state. So there's different impacts, on their communities and the borders. So I maybe, but doubtful that we're going to touch the bottle bill.
Oh, so there is single stream recycling curbside. Is it not at the state level?
No, we have single stream curbside. I mean, you guys all have the blue bins, and pretty much every community either has you put curbside or you live in a town, you're bringing your recycling to the dump.
Right. Yeah. Depending on the community. Right. Yeah.
Most communities bring their stuff to the dump. So those who've lived in smaller towns know what I'm talking about. Us city folk have no idea what you're saying.
Right.
And also best place to politic at the dump. Things I learned
Saturday mornings, right?
Things I learned from my colleagues in government. They'll stand at trash day at the drop site and talk to people.
Yes.
Things I learned from my other colleagues in government, right? So yeah, I mean, there's been a push over the years from obviously the beverage industry towards single stream recycling. They don't see the need for bottle bill considering modern technology. And they're pushing for the end of the bottle bill. I don't see that happening either. I think there's a lot of, I won't say content, but I think people are still cool with the current status quo. I think people are fairly happy with the status quo.
Yeah. What happens with the revenue that's generated from the bottle bill?
But a bottle bill goes back to you if you recycle.
Right.
Get the redemption. Otherwise, it goes to DEP in a type of recycling type trust fund. So it's kind of curious. So what happens is that it goes to this trust fund, and when you do redemptions, the businesses taking your bottles will get reimbursed by the state via this trust fund, which your bottle bill money went into. If it was surplus money in there, they can put those monies towards like other types of recycling programs and other types of similar type recycling programs. I don't know how to describe it to that. It's recycling programs. So one of the proposals out there is that you do a universal penny on all beverages is one proposal that's been heard in the past. When all that money goes to this DEP, and as opposed to being redemption program, that money would be used for assisting all communities or improving the single stream recycling.
Oh, okay.
That's one of the proposals I've done in the past. I don't know if it's still out there. I've not looked. It's been a while, but I'm aware there's been other alternative proposals to do small, whether it be penny or fractions of which on all beverages, and that money would go to the state, which then go back to pushing and improving and try to make affordable single stream recycling.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, and the statistic is that only 38% of recyclable items get recycled.
Well, it's also confusing recycling, right? I mean,
Very much so.
Yeah, those recycling triangles plus a number, even I find it unclear at one point, what you can and can't recycle. And the city gets penalized, you put non-recyclable items in a recycling bin. But it's so confusing what can and cannot go in. I mean, because not all recyclable items have equal recyclability. Not every piece of paper and every piece of plastic has equal recyclability issues. I mean, most of us deal with aluminum and plastic.
Right.
Which, aluminum has monetary value and glass has monetary value, but cardboard does not have the same monetary value. So it's like, it's two different things. And every country recycles differently. Every state in America also recycles differently.
Yeah.
And it's expensive to recycle.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good for all of us. It's good for the planet, but it's not always economically viable depending on the thing you're trying to recycle.
That's right. Even different types of plastic have different, recyclable values.
And not all plastic created equal because you
Right.
need plastics of different types. Heat resistant plastic, beverages, cooler plastics. They can do beverages. Thickness, different thickness of plastic.
Mhm.
Quality of the caps, and even like medical bottles. Right. I mean, you got to have secure caps, and not all plastic is created equal.
Right.
And not all plastic is equal. And I think that's kind of the challenge for folks. Aluminum tends to be a little bit more simpler. Glass is pretty straightforward too, but not paper and plastic.
Right.
That's a different challenge. And
For instance, I learned that most plastic flower pots are not recyclable. Go figure.
go figure, right? Again, different type of plastic. So again, I still very much promote people that should recycle as much as they can. But I'm not gonna lie to you, even I started to get confused about what can and cannot be put in single stream recycling.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's just it's one of those things that has not found its mainstream path just yet.
And you also can make things unrecyclable by making it very damaged.
Yep.
What I mean is they have rotted food,
Dirty. Yep.
very dirty. It's not like they power wash this stuff. And like you got paper recycle, but it was full of like grease.
Mhm.
It's less recyclability than it is that is not greasy. You got oil covered paper that's not recycled, right?
Right.
So again, I think recycling education keeps it the simplest and most important terms. They should recycle, and here's why. But the nuances of the economy about recycled materials is something people don't really know.
Will we be seeing you at any of the Independence Day events over the next few days, Jackie?
Well, I intend to continue to go to the events in my district. Adam Shore has their flag racing and scholarship graduation at the Rotary at 9 a.m. on July 4th. And then I believe 11 a.m. they have the small parade at Germantown. We do the neighborhood walk. And then Marymount kicks off, I believe, at 1 o'clock or just about 1 o'clock for their 1.25 mile parade through the neighborhood. And July 3rd is a Monday. I'm anticipating a lot of folks are taking Monday off, and it could impact the size of the crowds. I've noticed over the many years doing this now that the day of the week, has different level of people that are being there.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think you're right about that. It's going to be a 4-day weekend for a lot of people.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting the traffic patterns this year too. I mean, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday have been much busier going to Boston and Monday and Fridays, and does Thursday become the new Friday, which seems to be a new trend for a while?
Mhm.
People heading to Cape, and then you guys are hopefully aware that Sumner Tunnel is going to be closed. This starting, I believe, July 5th. Or was it 3rd or 5th? I think 3rd.
I think. Yeah.
For the whole summer until September, as they kind of continue their renovation work on upgrading the tunnel, which will again create more travel and traffic challenges for folks, going by air, whether coming or going. So, right now the forecast is going to be very busy travel summer nationally, and we'll see if July 4th. This weekend, people take the Monday off, and perhaps this Friday, Monday off, and make a 5-day, and then they forego going long trips, after Labor Day. I have no idea. It's going to be very interesting to see how people's traffic patterns. But I'm still convinced that people have prepaid vacations back in the winter for the summer and the fall. But I don't know if there's going to be like people planning vacations in July for the summer.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, that'll be interesting to see.
Economy is expensive.
Yeah.
And I think people's spending habits will continue to change as inflation kind of inches down and wages are slowed. But the cost of doing business has not gone down.
This is the point in the program, Jackie, where we ask you how to get a hold of you.
Sure. Again, 617-722-2370, 617-722-2370. If you have an urgent constituent matter, we do encourage you, please call the office. Please wait for the prompts. I'm reminded again that Jerry Paracella, Chair of Economic Development, is actually in his suite. He gets his name first on the list. An automated system, if the person in the front desk doesn't pick up, just be patient with our automated system if that happens. Obviously, you can walk in. I'm having walk-in constituents again, which is great, actually. I'm very happy to see walk-ins now in room 42 of the State House. Ashburton Place entrance is still closed for renovation. You have to go through the Hooker Statue entrance on Beacon Street. Tackey.chan@mahouse.gov, tackey.chan@mahouse.gov. Be mindful, this email also takes all the testimony for the committee. So, for example, I received 160 emails already on cat decline, banning the practice of cat decline. Yeah, one of the bills, and yes, it's going to get a favorable on the committee. We've done it 3 times. So, but I'm up to 160 and counting emails on just cat decline bans. And that is testimony from anyone, they're not constituent driven, anyone testimony. So I do receive a lot of testimony this time of year. Obviously, you can check out my Facebook at State Representative Tackey Chan. You can see some pictures of what I've been doing. And then, at Tackey Chan's Twitter account, please do not social media us, whether put comments under pictures or send us direct messaging between the spam, which has hit new heights. I'm still getting virus connected emails and social media links. And I'm not engaging people in this like tit for tat on social media. It is unproductive. You may have time to sit there. I do not have time when I have to sift through, 600 emails a day regarding testimony and your constituent service stuff. So, yeah. So, you think I have time to start a flame war in line? I mean, I got to read all this material people keep sending me. So, those are ways you can get in touch with me. And of course, tackeychat.org. And of course, you have malegislature.gov. So you need to talk to me. If you go to the state website, the legislature's website, malegislature.gov, to look up bills and watch public hearings and when hearings are. And of course, QATV in the Morning of Joe. And of course, us here on QATV podcast. So there's no lack of places to find information. Let us know what you're thinking. And if got a problem, talk to Joe. Don't talk to me.
And I'll make sure it gets to Tackey.
I'm sure Joe will take care of it for you.
Thanks a lot, Tackey. Happy Independence Day to you and your staff and your family.
No, thank you. You too, Joe. And I wish everybody a wonderful weekend with less rain. And please, everyone, please enjoy the summertime. Please do enjoy.